Hello, everybody. Hope you're having a wonderful day. I decided to go ahead and create a storytelling with props sample video for you since yours are due in the near future. I wanted to show you what what I could produce with my very limited artistic abilities. As I think I've mentioned before, I'm not as much of a visual hands-on person and learner and thinker, and so this is definitely a little outside my comfort zone. And I share that just so that if you feel the same way, you don't have to be intimidated by this process. I'm not grading you necessarily on the artistic level competence of your props. I just I want you to go through the process of finding and selecting a culturally valuable story and adapting it to this sort of improvised prop led format. Um, I'm not saying you can't pick a classic story or a beloved children's book, but remember, this is not a read aloud or a recitation. This is improvised storytelling, and so you would need to adapt the original text quite a bit for this to work for this assignment. And so I just want to share a little bit of what I did for this one. I looked up legends and folk tales in other cultures, and I found one that I liked, and there was a full text online that read much like an Aesop's fable or something like that. And so what I did was I did a couple things. I created a template, and so you're going to hear me repeat a few phrases over and over again. It's very cyclical, which is part of a good story for young children because that repetition is what helps them process incoming oral language, right? Um, and then when they go to tell these stories on their own, they will rely on those mechanisms as well, the repetition and the building, kind of the building upon nature of it. So I created a couple templates that I have up on my screen as notes. Very minimalist, like I told you. And the other thing is I adapted the plot a little bit. So this story, you'll see, it's about someone wishing they were something else, and it of course it comes full circle like any good story with a moral or a lesson. But I thought they missed, at least the version that I read, there was a missed opportunity for the original person to become another object, and so I've added that object in because I can, because I'm the storyteller and I wanted to adapt the story. So I hope that this video, number one, answers some questions you might have, and number two, eases your anxieties about this project because as you are about to see, this is not too fancy. I just got some felt from the early childhood supply closet, cut them into shapes. Um, I just had a really interesting conversation with one of my English colleagues and good friends, Miss Herman, and she is the master of the Cricut, if you know what a Cricut is. And so you may see later in this semester, if we have time, or it might be down the road, but I'll email it to you if I have your email still. We might make the same story, but with professional grade props. So you can see sort of the whole spectrum of how fancy you can get with this. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and give this a shot. It may not be perfect, but I think also that that's good for easing your concerns. So the first thing I would do is greet the class, obviously, and say that I'm going to tell a story today, and that I will be sharing a Japanese folk tale called The Legend of Haku. And in an ideal early childhood environment, I would love to see a world map on the wall. And so that might be something we do as sort of a pre-listening activity, is to find Japan on the map. Okay, so let's pretend we already did that, and here we go. All right. Once upon a time, there was a man named Haku. He was a hard-working stonecutter. He spent all day cutting into a giant boulder. One day while he was cutting the boulder, a royal procession rode by. It was the Emperor of Japan. Haku said, "I am so tired of cutting stones. It is nothing to be a stone cutter. The Emperor is the most powerful thing in all of Japan. I wish I were the Emperor." Haku blinked his eyes. You'll want to follow these googly eyes, by the way. Haku blinked his eyes, and when he opened them again, he had transformed into the Emperor. He couldn't believe it. He went back into his village and he bossed some people around and he took all his riches and bought a bunch of fun stuff. He was so happy at first. But then, as he was walking through the village, the sun came out and the rays beat down on him and it made him so hot and sweaty. Haku said, "This is miserable. It is nothing to be an emperor. It is the sun that is the most powerful thing in all of Japan. I wish I were the sun." Haku blinked his eyes, and when he opened them again, he had transformed into the sun. He couldn't believe it. He sat there in the sky and he pushed down his hot sun rays onto the ground and made everything warm. He was so happy at first. But then along came a big gray rain cloud. And all of a sudden, Haku couldn't send his sun rays down to the ground to keep everyone warm. The cloud was blocking him. Haku said, "I can't believe this. I can't make the people warm anymore. It is nothing to be the sun. The cloud is the most powerful thing in all of Japan. I wish I were the cloud." Haku blinked his eyes, and when he opened them again, he had transformed into the gray rain cloud. He couldn't believe it. He had so much fun. He blocked that sun and then he started sending rain down to the ground. He aimed it at the boulder and all the rest of the land. He was so happy at first. But then he started to realize that the rain that he was sending down did nothing to the boulder. It didn't move it or affect it in any way. And he got frustrated. He said, "It is nothing to be a rain cloud. The boulder is the most powerful thing in all of Japan. I wish I were the boulder." Haku blinked his eyes, and when he opened them again, he had transformed into that very same boulder. He couldn't believe it. He sat there big and strong, and he sat there big and strong. He got bored very quickly and frustrated. He said, "It is nothing to be a boulder. Only a skilled stonecutter could make a boulder useful." And he suddenly felt very, very sad. "What have I done?" Haku cried. "I take it back. I take it all back. It's nothing to be a boulder. I would gladly be a stonecutter again if there was only a way. I wish." And Haku blinked his eyes one more time. And when he opened them again, he had transformed back into his original form, Haku the stonecutter. He picked up his tools and continued chipping into the boulder, but this time he was the happiest stonecutter in all of Japan. The end. All right, that went pretty smoothly. I had to practice it several times earlier this week. Once you get into the rhythm of it, though, and you really trust in your memory, it helps a lot. So I just have this flow on my screen that literally is like Emperor, Arrow, Sun, Cloud, Boulder, Stonecutter. So I remember the order. But yeah. So at that point, I might open up conversation if it's circle time, and see if the children might be able to offer what they think the moral of the story is. And I think it's important to ask them. Don't force it on them and say, okay, and the moral of the story, by the way, is be careful what you wish for, or, um, whatever you think, in your opinion, the moral is. The children will probably have ideas that you haven't even thought of before. So definitely give them the opportunity to work on their expressive language skills and critical thinking. And then the other little piece of advice I have for you is, once you've created something like this and you've done it for circle time, first of all, it's not one and done. Repetition is absolutely a good thing, for read alouds and storytelling. And then the other thing is, after a couple repeats, you could shift it over to a literacy center elsewhere in the classroom and let the children try their hand at telling the story and manipulating the props. So the reason that storytelling with props has, been such a firm tradition in early childhood education is it's got there's so much value built into it in terms of literacy development and language development, but then it's also just, it can have such a long life in the classroom. So, okay, that's it. I'm at 12 minutes and I don't want to bore anyone. So have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll post this in today's announcements.